Elizabeth Parsons. Welcome to Menopause Checks.
Hi, I'm super happy to be here, Shirley.
Thank you for being here. As I was preparing the promotion for our conversation today, it just occurred to me that it was 18 months ago when we were publishing our book, Mokita. And I don't know if you know or not. Do you know what Mokita means?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, so
Well, you
Mokita,
told me so, but go ahead.
yeah, so Mokita means the truth we all know and choose not to speak of. And obviously, for our first book, we needed that conversation to be about perimenopause and menopause. But our community members at that time were telling us that there were lots of other conversations that they also wanted to crack open, including sexual health and brain health and bone health and relationships. And so that's why I am so excited that today we get to crack open the conversation with a separation and divorce coach and self-care coach. I want to include that as well. And Elizabeth, I just can't wait to get this conversation started. I know there are a lot of women in our community who are interested in your story, your experience, what you have to share with your clients, as well as I have this phrase that comes up a lot, and it's about how midlife has this ability to shine a big bright light on who we are. And that includes, what do we want our careers to be? Who do we want to be sharing our life with? So I think that this is also very timely from that perspective as well. So ready to get started?
Yes, I am. I love what you said there at the end, actually, because it's a time in life where a lot of women actually make the move to leave their spouse, because if they have stayed for the children, this is the time for them to actually step away from that marriage and now take the time for themselves. So you're so right that menopause can be that time for them. But of course, divorce is very stressful as well. It's the end of something, and it's a real upheaval of everything that we know and count on in life. So
yeah,
I went through it. It's now almost 13 years ago now that I first was separated, and I'd been married for 19 years. I had 4 teenage boys, and my world was upended. And at the time, I had no friends who were going through it, so I felt very much on my own. My family lives in a different country, so I felt very, like I said, on my own. My job, or I wasn't in a job, I was a stay-at-home mom, but part-time, I was a personal trainer and self-care coach. So that was where I went to heal myself, to get rid of some of the stress and the anxiety and everything that I was feeling. And it worked, it worked beautifully. And I also did a number of other things that I sort of self-discovery of meditation and gratitude and all these things that actually work when it comes to healing and kind of coming back to yourself. So ever since I kind of got through that, it has been my passion to bring that journey to women who are going through it, who also might be feeling alone and just so upended by this. And that's what I finally have realized.
That's amazing. And speaking of being upended, we are in the middle of an unprecedented health crisis in our world right now. So I'm imagining that there are some women watching this right now who are at various points in the timeline. They could be everywhere from happy in a relationship or not in a relationship, through trying to navigate something very, very serious in a time like this that we've never gone through before. So I just want to honor those women that are listening and let them know that they're not alone as well.
Absolutely. You know what? It's another crisis. Divorce is considered a life crisis, and what we're going through right now, because of the uncertainty of it, because it changes all the time, it can be considered another crisis. And for women who find themselves in relationships that are toxic, possibly abusive, just unhappy in general, it just adds a huge element of stress, that they're now being in isolation and forced to be alone, perhaps with this person that they really are not getting along with. And if there's any crack in the relationship, it's going to become a crater at this point, right?
Yeah. So what does a separation coach do?
So I coined that term myself because most Most who do work in this field that I do as a coach call themselves divorce coaches.
Okay.
I chose the term separation coach because I want to be there for them in the beginning. A divorce coach usually, or typically I should say, pick up their clients a little bit later in the process when they've gone through a lot of their legal, the beginning of it anyway, and a lot of things have already happened. So
Right.
now they're kind of at a stage where they feel, the clients feel ready to heal, if you will. But my experience was that in the beginning, when you're at the most emotional, is when we have to make the biggest and most important decisions. It's when we have to decide things about finances. I imagine most of your clients have older kids, but still we have to make parenting decisions. Might be suddenly forced with having to find a place to live, sell a house, whatever it is. Big, big decisions. And we're so heightened emotionally. And so I wanted to help them then. And I even wanted to be able to reach out to women who are thinking of it, who are preparing for it, and want to kind of get ready before they actually pull the trigger. So that's why I called myself that.
I love that. And you actually shared with me your checklist.
Yes.
What can you share a couple of the boxes that are on that checklist, and we'll share it with everyone. But I just found that really kind of painted a picture for me for perhaps a woman who's still, everything's still up in her head right now. She hasn't disclosed to her community. There isn't a for sale sign on her lawn, but yet there are a number of things that she could or should be doing right now. What are they?
Absolutely. She might not even have told her spouse yet that she wants to leave. But she's still feeling probably very scared and overwhelmed about this very uncertain future, right? And I think one of the big fears that people have is the fear of legal costs and legal action.
Right.
And the first thing a lawyer is going to ask for, or a mediator, or anyone in this process, is a financial disclosure. So I know for myself, when I went to the lawyer right away and I was told what to do, it was something that helped me feel more empowered. So one of the first things that I tell people on that list is to start gathering information. So just all your financial documents. And if you're still in the house with your soon-to-be ex, you still have access to his information. And that can be tricky once you do the split. So this is an opportunity to gather everything you might need statements and whatever. Just start making copies and start gathering information. So that's the first one. It's actually an empowering thing to do. It makes you feel a little bit more in control. And then, of course, self-care. So if you're not already practicing self-care, this is the time you have to. It's the only way you're going to get through it. So just pick something that you like to do. It could be going for a walk or exercising or spending time with a really good friend or reading or whatever it is that is your thing.
Yeah.
Really starting to do that. And the third thing I always make sure I tell people as well is to start building your tribe, your separation tribe. And that's the people that are going to support you. So
it feels empowering too.
Yes. And they actually appear. And that was what I found. When you start to share what you need and that you're going through this, there were some friends that fell away and that was disappointing, but there were some friends that stepped up. I made new friends through that process and they were incredible. So you know what? It's just, it'll change, but people will step forward for you. And so that, to me, that is a really important step as well. And to find perhaps a therapist and really be clear on who your really true best friend is, who you can trust no matter what. Those
Right.
people.
Now, I'm going to ask you what about journaling? Because I've heard from friends that have received advice, write everything down. And I'm bringing that up because we were talking about journaling in the community just the other day as a way to deal with some of the fear and uncertainty that we're going through in our world right now. But what about as you're navigating this process?
So to me, in my mind, journaling is something that I do. It's a self-care, actually, step that I teach all my people in my course and in my community. It's something, I think of journaling as writing down feelings, as writing down intentions, and this has more to do with what's going on inside you. It could be a form of release.
Right.
You were asking kind of like, what you were asking about was sounded more like documentation, so writing everything down. So that to me is two separate things, and both of them are important. So yes, if you start to end up in a more high conflict situation, if you're actually going through the separation, yes, absolutely document everything. But journaling, yes, write, pour your heart out. And the thing in a journal is you can say all the things or write all the things you can't say out loud.
Love it. Love it. Can you share any stories with us? Like, what's the most surprising thing that you've encountered? Or do you have an example of a case study of a woman who's come out the other side that you can share with us?
Yeah, I had it's funny, in my personal training world many years ago, I worked with a woman, like just a colleague in the industry. And she had read my story. I have a blog as well where I've shared some of my stories. And my ex had an affair. So when her now soon to be ex had an affair, she called me. I hadn't spoken to her in,
Right.
I couldn't tell you how many years. And she just needed to talk. And she since then has joined my program. She took my course. And she's gone on the most incredible journey. And she is such an example of what works. So she did the work. Like, it's not enough that I present the things that you can do. You have to embrace the process and really dive into it. And she did. And as a result, she was able to bring those emotions down in the beginning. And her and her ex actually went into mediation in early January. And by the end of Feb, they had a final agreement in place and were still friendly. And in the middle of this COVID crisis, they're actually still living under the same roof and managing it really well because they had to delay the sale of their house.
Right.
But I am so proud of what she has accomplished and how much she has grown. So it's been a pretty amazing thing to watch.
That's awesome. And before we forget, you just mentioned course and program. So tell us a bit more about that and what it's like to work with you.
Yeah, so I offer a course called Freedom to Rise, which started in January and it just finished actually. So it'll start again in June. I'll launch at the end of May. And it is an 8-week program that I literally take you on my journey. And it is a journey of self-care and self-discovery, finding your voice and just figuring out what you want your life to look like and then starting to work towards that. So that went really well.
Is that
so much fun working with them. Is that a group
program?
Yes, it is. So there's modules that they do on their own time online, and then weekly coaching calls twice a week. So there was a ton of support, and these women saw a lot of progress. So that was a really fun journey. And then this week, actually today, I just launched my membership, which was honestly the first thing I wanted to do. I wanted to create a resource place for women who were going through this, a place where they could feel safe and get all the information they needed instead of having to constantly surf the net and then not know if they're getting good and reliable information. Plus, I wanted to give them support. So that finally happened. So it happened in opposite order. But today, that resource site went live. That membership is called Rising Free. And it's open. It's early bird price actually until midnight tonight. So
awesome. We'll share your link in the comments below. Perfect. And also a great opportunity to just pause here and ask anybody if they have any questions for Elizabeth. They can also post them in the comments below, and we'll monitor that conversation over the next day or two. So as your membership's getting off the ground.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I really appreciate being in here, and I welcome your questions. Anyone who's listening to this, I will be monitoring as well. And anything at all. I think the biggest thing is I think women feel so, they feel lost, they feel deflated, they feel lack of confidence when this happens. And really my program is all about building them back up. It's just, getting back to that place where you feel good and solid and strong and like you can do this, like give yourself some sense of mastery again of life.
Yeah. Well, I love that you use the word confidence. And I think it's one of the reasons why we connected so quickly when we met, because you're doing for separation and divorce what we've been trying to do for perimenopause and menopause. Many of our community members, find menopause chicks, and up until that point, they've either been relying on girlfriends' information or mothers' experiences, and that's not necessarily always going to be the highest of quality resources. So I love that you're doing this for this phase of life or this phase of relationship life.
Yeah, and I love that you brought that up, because your community, this is the thing I love so much about it, is how positive it is. Yeah. You are focused on making it a positive experience. with divorce and separation, there's lots of the support groups online, like Facebook groups, but they
Sure.
tend to be quite negative. There's a lot of dwelling in the negative and a lot of, just trashing their ex and those kinds of things, but that keeps you in a very negative place. And so I've really tried to create a very positive community. Like, let's just focus on being and feeling better as opposed to dwelling in what didn't work, right?
That's amazing. That's amazing. I was writing about that this morning, actually. Sometimes I get accused of being a Pollyanna, and I want to take people to that other side maybe a little bit too quickly, and they're not ready for it. And it's so important for me to remember I have to do both. I have to meet women where they are
Mm-hmm.
and see the pain or the fear or whatever, wherever their level of discomfort is, and paint a picture for them of what the future could potentially look like. It sounds
And
like what you're saying.
very much so. And really my constant message to my ladies is, you do get to have a choice over where you want to go.
Right, it's a choice.
And it's, things can seem really scary and difficult and impossible, but with some guidance and coaching, there's actually light, and there is a way to get there. It's just changing your mindset and just taking that more Pollyanna, to use your term, approach. But it actually does work, and it gives you an opportunity to love life again. And that's really where we want to take them.
Awesome. So you only work with women?
Right now I do, but I'm actually already getting requests from men, and there is a market there. So I actually said to my husband one day, I'm like, you know what, I'm going to launch a man's version of this one day, and you'll have to run it. And he's like, okay, I'll run it.
I get asked all the time when I'm going to write a book about menopause for men. And I was like, I already did. Like, just read this one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's all the same.
It's yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, men have a similar but different experience. And the unfortunate thing for men, honestly, is that there's very little support for them.
that's very true.
Yeah.
Very, very true.
Because they've been taught not to share feelings. And so where do they go? Right?
Yeah, I say the same thing. I mean, I know that there's an opportunity to support men through midlife, through all of these changes that we have as human beings as we grow older. But it's, making that decision like you have and like I have, is that there's so many women to help that they've become the priority. So, and I love that you're creating a community or a group or a program where you can work with other women too, because I think we learn through others' experiences. And it's one thing to have a coach, but it's also another thing to have a community.
Absolutely. I have loved watching them connect with each other and how they're there for each other, how quickly somebody will respond to a comment or a question before I can even get in there. And I'm honestly in there all the time, but they get there right away, and they just pour the support on, and people need that. And as much as they love getting my support, getting support from a woman who's going through it right now is even more meaningful to them in a way, because they saw her cry on the feed yesterday, and today she's supporting. And I think that means it's a different kind of support, and they need it. They really do need it. So it's wonderful to watch women supporting women. That's awesome. I believe in that big time.
That's awesome. Tell us your website, and again, I'll post it below.
Yeah, so it's called theseparationclub.com. So it's a club that you never wanted to belong to, but we're still going to make it better. And
or maybe you do want to belong to it.
Pardon me?
Or maybe you do want to belong to it.
I know, right?
Right?
This is the thing. Like, I actually, what's interesting? I'm in a business coaching group, and I had somebody there pose the same question, just slightly differently than the woman did in my group. This question is the same. I'm feeling guilty because I'm kind of happy right now. And so the one woman was feeling guilty because she was happy because her separation was moving forward, and she's just feeling so relieved and happy. And the other woman was feeling guilty because she's enjoying her time at home with her child during these difficult times, right? So it's like, let's never feel guilty about feeling good. Like, never, ever. We're allowed to do that.
So important. And I'm so glad that we got here, even though we might be going a little bit over time today. Just before Christmas, so a few months ago, I was driving with my 16-year-old daughter. And I remembered that I hadn't told her that people that we know were going to be separating in the new year. And so I thought, because sometimes I forget to tell my kids these pieces of news, and then they find out months and months later. So I shared the news with her, and her first reaction was, "Oh, that's too bad." And I thought to myself, that's interesting that you have that societal or cultural perspective. And so I challenged her on it. I said, I don't know the situation, but what if it isn't too bad? What if it is a transition that's going to make everyone in that house happier?
Yeah. Yeah. And the truth is, it's worth considering. It's the process that typically is so difficult. It's the journey to get from here to here.
Messy in the middle.
Yeah. But it doesn't have to be, but it often is. But ultimately, at the other end, there is such a huge opportunity for both parties to actually be really happy, because there is a reason that this happened, this split, this, marriage falling apart. It didn't just happen overnight either. There's so much guilt attached to it. Maybe I didn't try hard enough. Maybe I should have tried longer. Maybe you tried just long enough. Maybe those last 3 years of trying was enough. Maybe you don't have to try anymore. Maybe that's not really what you're supposed to be doing anymore. And that's okay.
Love it. Love it. Love it. My final question with professionals who join us here at Menopause Chicks is typically, what's the one thing you want women to know about perimenopause? But in your case, and maybe you've already answered this, but I think it would be worthwhile underscoring it. What's the one thing you want women to know about separation or divorce?
I want you to take care of yourself. That's what I would say. You have to, if you're going to get through it in one piece and to get to the other side feeling good, take care of yourself. It's not selfish. It's necessary.
That's beautiful. Thank you for joining us, Elizabeth. This has been a great conversation. If you have any questions, please post them in the comments below. Elizabeth and I will be monitoring those comments over the next day or two. And please check out her website, theseparationclub.com.
Yes, thank you so much, Shirley, for having me on here. And it was wonderful to meet all of you.
Okay, we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.